Moving on with the short track racing month of April, it's Martinsville, first night race of the season. And I gotta say, NASCAR needs to do this more often. We need more night races. I don't know why most of these races are like Sunday afternoon day races. Some of the Saturday night, we need some Saturday night races to spice things up. But that's just me. Anyways, let's get right into it. So for the truck race, Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, there was rain. It drenched the track, so there was no practice, no qualifying. Of course, the rain had cleared by the time the Xfinity practice went underway. So at least Xfinity was able to have their practice session and qualifying. But for the truck series, they had to go into this completely blind, and you know how this goes when you put a lot of young, inexperienced truck series drivers on a green track with no experience, with no practice or qualifying whatsoever. It's gonna be chaos. And the race was chaotic, but not in the way you would expect. It wasn't really a wreck fest. It was pretty much, almost like 40% of the race was run under caution, but most of those cautions were caused by either a single car or a few, like if it was a multi-car incident, it was like 2-3 trucks. And also we had a lot of mechanical failures. In the pace laps, Ty Majeski, for the second consecutive race, he had an issue that he had to come down to pit road during the pace laps. It was a battery issue this time. There were also a lot of cautions early, and most of these cautions involved the Nice trucks, more specifically Chris Wright. And there was also Dean Thompson, Lawless Allen. Not a very good season so far for Nice Motorsports. Carson Holzhauer is just carrying that entire program, it seems like. Another driver that didn't really, another driver that's having a bad season is Jack Wood. And once again, he got involved in the very first caution on lap 1. I believe it was with Chris Wright, funnily enough. And this was really, again, his bad season continues. He's only had 4 finishes outside the top 30. Only 1 finish above the top 30. I think that finish was a top 15, if I recall correctly. I think it was at either Las Vegas or Atlanta. I don't know. But yeah, so just a bad season overall for Jack Wood. Another driver that really had a lot of incidents was Hailie Deegan. Now, Hailie, she actually finished 19th in this race, but it wasn't without controversy since early in the race, Johnny Sauter put her in the wall while racing for 22nd, and that really, to be fair, honestly, Hailie Deegan was really, she was really run over a lot in this race. Johnny Sauter wasn't honestly the only guy. He was the first one, but he wasn't the only guy that ran her over. There was also Chase Purdy. There was also Colby Howard, I believe, when they were running like 3 wide. There was a moment where they were running 3 wide, and they got into it. Taylor Gray was there as well. But the guy that definitely stuck out the most, because Hailie, when I confronted him in post-race, it was Lawless Allen. Now, they were running in the final laps. He was running 19th. Hailie was running 20th. Hailie eventually passed them. She finished 19th. Now, I don't know what really happened because Fox really didn't show like the context behind the incident. They only showed like the Hailie going right at his, right at his face. And looking at the body language, it seemed like Lawless was a bit, was being apologetic, I guess, towards Hailie. Like he knows that he messed up, because if you look at Hailie just giving him that intimidating stare, and Lawless just trying to explain himself. Yeah, not a very good look for him. Again, I don't know the entire context behind all of that because NASCAR on Fox, I guess. But if the body language is anything, if the body language is anything that we can use as judging by the body language, then Haley probably is in the right. Probably Lawless Alan probably did something in the wrong. But then again, I may be wrong. I mean, again, like I said, Hailie Deegan was pushed around the entire race, so maybe she got a little bit too hot towards the end of the race, and maybe her getting raced hard by Lawless Alan is what set her up. So if that's the case, then yeah, maybe Hailie Deegan overreacted, and maybe she shouldn't have done Lawless Alan like that. But it was still pretty funny just watching that discussion unfold. I'm not gonna lie, but then again, Hailie, I feel like Hailie had been pushed around so much. So even if Hailie was just overreacting over being raced hard, she still needed to stand up for herself. It's just that I don't know. I don't think Lawless Alan was the right guy for her to stand up against, because she was done dirty by Johnny Sauter. Like I am willing to bet that what Lawless Alan did was not as egregious as what Sauter did, putting her in the wall earlier in the race. So if anything, Deegan should have gone right after Johnny Sauter and not after Alan, because maybe Alan was racing her hard and she was just triggered by that because it had been a long night for her. But I digress. And it's also pretty funny that Hailie is arguing with Alan, because again, his guy is Lawless. His name is Lawless. Like Lawless Alan is definitely like one of the coolest name in NASCAR. That's such a NASCAR name, honestly. And the fact that Hailie Deegan is arguing with someone named Lawless and not, Johnny Sauter, that's honestly really funny. Speaking of Johnny Sauter, he finished second. He managed to claw his way through the field and finish second in one of his part-time starts with Sport Racing. So, shout out to him for that. Now, most of the action, as for the race itself, most of the action was mid-pack. Up front was pretty clean. There was the leader was pulling away. Then there was a few top 5 cars. Then the top 10s, a few battles in the top 10, and then there was a huge pack, one guy holding everybody up, and there was some beating and banging there. But for the most part, up front, the leader, whoever was leading the race, was pulling away. So I guess track position was pretty important. Since Ben Rhodes, who won stage 2, by the way, he managed to pull away on 40-lap older tires on the final run in stage 2, and he managed to open up a huge gap and run away with stage 2. As for stage 1, Saint Smith, he led every single lap in stage 1, and he won. Again, stage 2, like I said, Ben Rhodes won, but it was only a 40-lap stage. Stage 2 was only a 40-lap stage because of these long 10-lap cautions. And that's another thing that really killed the action on Martinsville. It was these long caution flags. Now again, Martinsville is a short track, so caution laps. So the cautions, if a yellow is thrown, there's gonna be 6-7 caution laps at the bare minimum. But the stage breaks and some of the cautions, even that were not the cautions for the stage finish, they were 10-lap cautions. And again, that really messed up with the flow of the race, I feel like, because around 40% of the race was run under yellow. There weren't many. This wasn't a caution-filled race. I mean, for Martinsville standards, it wasn't. It was an average Martinsville race. 10 cautions in a 200-lap race is an average Martinsville race. Again, I don't know if there were 10 cautions in this race, but it felt like it. It felt like it with all those long yellows. But then again, there wasn't much action as I expected, especially not up front. There was beating and banging. Most cautions were caused by 1 to 2 car spins. A car stalled on the track because, again, mechanical failures, no practice, no qualifying is going to lead to that. And the longest green flag run was the final restart. The final green flag run was 35 laps long. But before that, the second longest green flag run was only 16 laps. Up until that final green flag stretch where the race went under green, There was only the other longest green flag run, like in the first 2 stages, was only 16 laps long. That's just how crazy it was. But anyways, William Byron, making a one-off start for Spire Motorsports, he ended up winning the race. The first ever win for Spire Motorsports, so, nice to see a small team dipping its toes in the truck series and getting their first win in their first season, by the way. Kind of like how Justin Haley did it for Spire Motorsports in their first year in Cup at Daytona. Kyle Busch was also in this race, and he led 0 laps. First time since Charlotte in 2018 that he has failed to lead a single lap in the truck series. I was actually wondering when was the last time, because I didn't see Kyle Busch anywhere in the front. Like, he was a top 5 truck, but he wasn't anywhere in the front. So this is, like, honestly the most quiet race I have ever seen out of Kyle Busch. And it's crazy because the guy still finished 3rd, but the fact that we are so used to seeing Kyle Busch winning in the truck series, the fact that he did not is honestly really surprising. But anyways, again, there was not much action, and it's to be expected because the spring Martinsville race doesn't really bring as much action as fall Martinsville, because it's all give no take, all take no give. There isn't as much give and take as it is in the fall Martinsville race, where people are fighting for a playoff spot. And again, it's honestly disappointing that the truck series only makes 1 trip to Martinsville this season, and it's in the spring. Like, if you're going to, I believe Martinsville deserves 2 dates in the truck series. I don't know why they took away one of the Martinsville races. I don't understand why. Martinsville is one of those tracks that deserves 2 race dates. And one of those race dates is it must be a playoff date. Even if you're going to run like one Martinsville race, why are you going to run it in the regular season? Run it in the playoffs. Martinsville being the cutoff race is must-watch TV, and to take that away, at least from the truck series, that just doesn't really make sense to me. But then again, honestly, I don't have much to say about this race because not much action happened, which was pretty underwhelming, honestly. But sometimes that's how it goes. Now, the Xfinity race was a whole different story. As soon as the engines were fired, and you just can't make this up, it immediately started raining. And this is so we finally got our first rain-delayed race weekend. Of course, there is Atlanta, but Atlanta did not. The rain delay at Atlanta only affected practice and qualifying. It didn't affect the race itself. Fortunately, it was a short red flag, around 20 minutes, and then the race went green. But on turn 1 on lap 1, the madness just did not stop there. On turn 1 of lap 1, Brennan Poole caught an oil line and he started smoking. And then on the restart, Brett Moffitt's transmission broke, which there was no caution. And once again, Fox, they didn't acknowledge it, even though we could clearly see the 0-2 slowing down on the track. Fortunately, Moffitt managed to bring it down to pit road without a caution. A few other guys that dropped out like flies. A few guys were dropping like flies there. Howard DiSavino was also stalled on the track. He brought out a caution. Ty Gibbs ended up winning stage 1, but he was going to the hauler because during the Howie DiSavino caution, he got sent to the hauler for failure to slow down quickly enough around the safety vehicles, because there was a car stalled outside the track, on the outside of the racetrack. There was a car stalled and safety vehicles were there. Ty Gibbs didn't slow down in time, so he was sent to the hauler for that after the race. Stage 2 is when we started to see some strategy going on. Again, fuel doesn't matter as much. You're going to be pitting for tires basically. And now, compared to the truck race, the tires matter more, especially in the long runs. Noah Gragson, he restarted on the lead, but then Ty Gibbs overtook him again on fresh tires, which is something that you didn't usually saw in the truck race. You saw guys, for example, I talked about the truck race yesterday, last night, Ben Rhodes managed to pull away and win the stage on 40 lap older tires by a pretty healthy margin too at Martinsville of all places. So go figure. I guess tires matter more in the Xfinity race than the truck race. We also saw Joe Graf Jr. once again being an absolute menace. The guy just took out Jay Buford and Stephen Parsons, just sending it into the corner like an absolute madman. And then he ended up somehow, some way, because, Fox doesn't show anything, he somehow ended up junking himself in stage 3 just as he was about to receive the free pass. He was able to finish the race, though, but once again, another eventful day for Joe Graf Jr., and not a good look for him. Speaking of Stephen Parsons, all of this shuffling and strategies, all of these shuffling and strategies meant that Stephen Parsons managed to score a few stage points. He finished 7th, and he even got to lead the opening laps of stage 3. He took advantage of some pit strategy, granted, but still, it was a great recovery from him. Speaking of stage 2, most of the shuffling and strategies meant that Ty Gibbs, he forfeited the stage sweep because stage 2 was a one-lap shootout. I thought Ty Gibbs was going to, go for the stage sweep. He did not, and Brandon Jones was there. He stayed out, and he ended up winning stage 2. And a few other guys that finished with. A few other guys that scored stage points. Landon Castle was 2nd, Ryan Sieg was 3rd, Brandon Brown was 4th, David Starr was 5th, Jeremy Clements was 8th, and Shane Lee was 10th. Now in stage 3 is when the real total madness ensued. We started seeing a lot of these brake cautions as the race was about to. As the laps were winding down. Allgaier, he struggled with just wheel hopping the corner all the time. That was not the first time he did that. He hit the wall hard. He wheel hopped once. I believe it was in stage 2. He got loose. He lost a couple spots, but this time he wheel hopped. The second time, which was in stage 3, he hit the wall hard. And then after that, this turned to some brake cautions basically. Ryan Truex spun out, and then Josh Berry, he cut a tire on a restart on the next restart after contact with Dale Earnhardt Jr. So, that was pretty awkward. I guess Dale Jr. owes him a beer for that. Dale Jr. with a. Speaking of Dale Jr., he was making his one-off start. He started from the rear, just like him and Noah Gragson started from the rear, but he worked his way to the top 5 by stage 2. Granted, some of that was with pit strategy, but he still managed to work his way to the top 5. Then he stayed a top 10, top 15 car for the rest of the race, but he got spun eventually on a late restart with about 8 laps to go. And the way he spun out, it was pretty funny. It was basically a stack up, and Sheldon Creed, apparently he missed the shift, and then Anthony Alfredo was there, and Junior was there behind him, so the entire field checked up, and then Jeremy Clements, he saw an opportunity, and he went to the inside of Junior, and Josh Berry, he went immediately to Jeremy Clements' inside, so they were like 3 wide, but way low. The 3 guys took the first corner way too low, and I mean that's not gonna work in Martinsville. So Junior spun out, and a lot of people were joking that maybe Josh Berry got his revenge there. He used some help from Jeremy Clements, and Josh Berry managed to get his quote unquote revenge on Dale Jr., I guess. But anyways, back to the action, because the action was picking up. There were a few more cautions. Matt Mills and Natalie Decker spinning out. The racing was okay up until that point. But then it became a wreck fest. We had a somewhat long green flag run in between though, with like, I believe this was like from 50 to like 20 to 15 to go. We had like a 30 to 35 lap long green flag run. But then we had even more cautions after that. Stefan Parsons spun out again. Then Daniel Hemrick, he after some contact gave him a cut tire, he spun out. Jade Buford, Derek Griffith, you know. And while all of this was happening, Sam Mayer was coming alive in the final stretch of the race. And him and Ty Gibbs were the two best cars left. And then in overtime, on the first overtime restart, Sam Mayer, I thought he had spun his tires, but he actually missed the shift. And then chaos ensued because when Mayer got back to speed, Gragson was to his inside, and then the both of them made contact. Gragson and Sam Mayer, they have some history. Not as big of a history as he has with Ty Gibbs, and we're gonna get into those two later. But basically, him and Gragson tangled. Gragson spun out, and then just absolute chaos. It was an absolute parking lot out there. There were like, I don't know. There was just a total carnage there. The race was red flag to sort all of that out. At the end of the day, 100 laps, or it may be more, but let's say 100 or so laps were run under caution, and the race ended in double overtime. And Ty Gibbs, once again, he was leading the race, and Brandon Jones just sent it in the first corner, and Ty Gibbs got on the outside. He got left on the outside, and from that point on, everybody just ganged up on him, and Brandon Jones just stole that win away. And AJ Allmendinger, because Ty Gibbs was also competing for the Dash for Cash, Allmendinger managed to steal the Dash for Cash away, because while Ty was running second, Sam Mayer was behind him. He gave him a bump and run, basically. And then basically the same move that Johnny Sauter did to Hailie Deegan in the truck race. He bumped him into turn 3, and then coming over 4, he did the same thing that Sam Mayer did the same thing that Sauter did to Hailie Deegan during the truck race. He just put Ty Gibbs in the wall, and Ty Gibbs was angry. Neither driver won the Dash for Cash. Ty Gibbs was angry. He on the cool down lap, he slammed into Sam Mayer, and then he when he got off his car, he went immediately to confront Sam Mayer. Stuff. One thing led to another, and next thing you know, Ty Gibbs is just punching him, and and a full-on fist fight ensues. And I'm gonna be honest, I have never seen a bigger fight like this since Jeff Gordon, Brad Keselowski, 2014. This was definitely definitely huge, because the last time a driver threw some punches, I mean from my head, the last time I can recall, it's Kyle Busch in 2017 when he punched Logano after Las Vegas. Yeah, Ty Gibbs just landed 4 punches on Sam Mayer. And these are two guys that have been racing since forever. A lot of people were saying that, it's Ty Gibbs when Sam Mayer was coming alive in this final few laps. People were saying, watch out for Sam Mayer. Him and Ty Gibbs have history. There has been this rivalry going on since their K&N ARCA days, and now this they have their first major altercation. This is going to be a great rivalry for the sport. Also, again, this is the first fight of the season. It had to happen. It was bound to happen eventually. And since both of them are young, they're still teenagers. This is going to be the next great rivalry in NASCAR. I really hope both of them make it to the Cup Series, because this Ty Gibbs Sam Mayer storyline is going to be really great to follow. Now, as for the fight itself, I'm going to make a separate video on this, because I feel this needs to be a separate topic that I need to talk about. This needs to be analyzing the Ty Gibbs Sam Mayer altercation. This is like its own video. Talking about this will unnecessarily stretch it out, but honestly, to put it, to give you the rundown, basically this is not a good look for Ty Gibbs. He just basically became the next, the next Kyle Busch, the next villain of NASCAR, if you could say. Also, Joe Gibbs' race was really funny to watch. He didn't look happy at all. I don't know about you guys, but he didn't look happy at all that Brandon Jones won. He was more like pissed off that Ty Gibbs got screwed over in that race. So it was really funny to watch. I don't think he really feels that way, but I mean, because so many things were happening at once that maybe it was hard for him to process. But the fact that he didn't seem happy. Of course, he even went to victory lane to see the 19 car, the 19 team winning that race, but he didn't even look happy at all there. I don't know. It was honestly so funny to watch. Now for the Cup race, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This race was very underwhelming, especially for this being the 75th year or 75th anniversary of NASCAR's first ever race at Martinsville. The first thing that was on my mind, though, leading up to this race was, why is this race 400 laps? Honestly, what was the need to? I get that NASCAR wants to shorten races, and the fans have said we want shorter races, but why would you want Martinsville to be a 400 lap race? I don't know if Martinsville was the right race to shorten, especially when Texas is still 500 miles and Texas is like universally hated by the NASCAR community. I didn't quite understand that. But anyways, just like the Xfinity race and parts of the truck race on Thursday, more rain. This time it was ice and sleet, though. For the second time this season, there was snowing, but not kind of really. It was more like ice and sleet. This rain delay was even longer, 1 hour longer than the Xfinity race. So the race started out once again later than expected. And early on, it became pretty apparent that this will be a Hendrick Motorsports masterclass. They ended up leading all but 8 laps in this race. As a matter of fact, after lap 18, Hendrick Motorsports had already reached that 10,000 lap mark of 10,000 laps led at Martinsville. The first ever team in NASCAR history that has led 10,000 laps at a single track. So, once again, shout out to Hendrick Motorsports for that. But yeah, stage 1 was pretty quiet. Like all other races, like the truck race and the Xfinity race before that, rain washed away all of the rubber. So it was a one groove track at the start of the race. You stayed on the inside lane just logging laps, and Chase Elliott just ran away with it. Just like the truck race and the Xfinity race, the guy who started on the pole just dominated and won stage 1. So no big surprise there. What was a big surprise, however, was Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota struggling. And once again, this was definitely a big surprise because after what we saw at Richmond, we thought that Joe Gibbs Racing was back to form, but they were a complete no-show at Martinsville, especially Truex and Hamlin, 2 guys that were like have been leading this Joe Gibbs Racing dominance at Martinsville, or JGR's short track domination. Truex and Hamlin were complete no-shows. The best Joe Gibbs Racing car was Christopher Bell. He finished top 5 in stage 1. Kyle Busch, he started out in the top 10, but then he fell out in the long run. He always struggled with long run speed. Truex was barely a top 20 car, and in stage 1. Eventually in stage 3, by the time stage 3 happened, he had eventually clawed his way into like 13th, I believe. But Hamlin was a whole completely different story. Hamlin got lapped and got trapped a lap down at the end of stage 1. He tried to, he was battling with Michael McDowell there at the end for the free pass, but McDowell just edged them out, and Hamlin was basically trapped a lap down for the remainder of the race. The only Toyotas that scored stage points in the first stage were, again, Christopher Bell in 5th and Kurt Busch in 10th. Bubba Wallace was running 20th, hovering around the top 20, but then a slow pit stop in stage 2 put them down in like lap traffic situation where he basically had to fight and claw to stay on the lead lap basically. We also saw over the course of the race some downshifting, and eventually handling became an issue because, and if you guys don't know, this next gen car, this Gen 7 car, whatever you want to call it, it's 5 gears. So when you downshifting at Martinsville becomes an issue, becomes not really an issue, but it becomes a factor now. And you know, when you downshift, the car tends to get loose, and all of a sudden handling becomes an issue at a short track. You know, Martinsville is more of a bumping and short, flat track. You don't really struggle with handling much outside from the occasional wheel hopping, but the fact that drivers were struggling with grip at a short track like Martinsville was, again, definitely surprising. Again, not as surprising when you consider the fact that they were racing at a fresh track that had like 0 rubbers. So overall, stage 2 was also quiet. Even on a shorter race format, even for a 400 lap race, rain, a new car not putting enough rubber, it's not going to it's not going to produce like a great entertaining race at any track, as a matter of fact. I don't know why people are saying that Martinsville got ruined, that the Gen 7 car ruined Martinsville. They were not racing, the track conditions were not optimal to produce like the usual bumping and banging race you see at Martinsville. By the time we go to the fall race, if the temperatures are hot, and if it's hot and humid at Martinsville, we're definitely going to see more of the bumping and banging Martinsville we're usually accustomed to. So I'm not really overreacting over one bad race at Martinsville. But yeah, again, just like the truck and the Xfinity race, the leader pulled away on the long green flag runs. Second place, there was a gap between the leader and second place, a gap between second and third, and so on, until we reached a pack of cars like in the midfield. They were like fighting for position in the long run. There were a few comers and goers in the midfield. Cole Custer, he was a top 5 car in stage 2 until an uncontrolled tire penalty. After that, he was basically a non-factor. Kyle Busch, he was in and out of the top 10 for a while. He eventually, by stage 3, he managed to climb his way back to the top 5, where he stayed there until the later stages of the race, where he slid back to 7th and he finished there. Also, Kurt Busch, he finished 1 position above him in 6th. He was also a top 10 car for most of the race. Team Penske, they started out like midfield, all 3 Penske cars started right next to each other, as a matter of fact, like around the top 15. They managed to climb their way up as the race went on, and Logano eventually challenging for the win. Austin Dillon was another guy. He started out like outside the top 20, but he finished 3rd. That was the big surprise of this. The surprise driver of the race to me was Austin Dillon, because Martinsville is usually like one of his better tracks. Austin Dillon being a sneaky driver that can usually snag a top 5 or a top 10 on super speedways, but there's also quite a few tracks that he's pretty good at where he's like a sneaky good pick, and Martinsville is actually one of them. Kevin Harvick, just like Kurt Busch, he was running in top 10, but he fell back towards the end. Kyle Larson, just like Christopher Bell, he was a top 10, top 5 car, but then pit road issues for both him and Christopher Bell. Pit road issues caused them to drop out of the top 10. They managed to finish. They didn't finish deep in the field, but they finished like in the high teens, basically. They still finished inside the top 20, but just barely. But yeah, anyways, Chase Elliott swept both the stages, and in a race that saw him lead the first 185 laps. And then we had our first lead change on pit road with William Byron. And it basically was a tale of two halves for Hendrick Motorsports. We know Chase Elliott dominating the first half, William Byron dominating the second half. It was, again, just an Hendrick Motorsports masterclass all around. And stage 3, once again, he was just more of the same. The race was so quiet, in fact, that we got to see green flag pit stops at Martinsville. You just don't see that. I don't know when was the last time I recalled seeing like green flag pit stops at Martinsville. I do not recall when was the last time I saw that, but the race was so quiet and there was not so much going on, especially up front. I mean, there was the occasional bidding and banging on the restarts, but then as the long runs went on, it became, the lack of rubber made this a one-lane racetrack where if you went to the outside, you were going to get freight train basically. It was hard to pass. Again, no rubber. And apparently the new car doesn't put out enough rubber. But then again, this is the first race of this Gen 7 car at Martinsville, so I'm not gonna say that the next gen ruined short track racing because of just one bad race. But yeah, during those green flag pit stops, Truex, who was running inside the top 15, he got a flat tire just after around 1 or 2 laps after completing his green flag pit stop. So he had to pit again. He fell out of the top 20 and never recovered. And then Denny Hamlin, he got lapped down again. He was as far as 2 laps back to the leader. So again, just a nightmarish race for Joe Gibbs Racing. The fact that they even got one of their cars in the top 10 is an absolute miracle in and of itself. The race ended up into overtime, one of only 4 cautions the entire race. And in that overtime restart, Joe Logano tried to make something happen, but he tried to put the bumper on William Byron. It's not like he didn't try. He tried to put the bumper on Byron, but Byron just ran away with it, and he ended up winning this race. So, just like last year, our first repeat winner this season comes in race number 8 at the exact same venue, being Martinsville. And it's also really funny because William Byron, he won the 5th race of the season and the 8th race of the season, just like Martin Truex Jr. did last year. Back in 2021, Phoenix was the 5th race of the year. Martinsville was the 8th race of the year. Martin Truex Jr. won both of them and became the first repeat winner of 2021. In 2022, Atlanta is the 5th race of the season. William Byron wins that. And then when we go to Martinsville, which is race number 8, Byron wins that as well to become the first repeat winner of the season. So with that, and him becoming the first repeat winner of the season and him showing a lot of speed, Byron has established himself as a huge title threat. In my playoff predictions, I had him as a dark horse threat for the title, but now with 2 wins under his belt, he has now become a legit title threat on the level of Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, and Ryan Blaney, as well as Kyle Larson. Once he shakes off, that early season championship hangover, I also expect him to have a resurgence in the later months of the summer. But yeah, so far those are like my championship, some of my championship drivers to watch right now. Some of the early championship hopefuls, if you could say it. But yeah, overall, not much happened in this race, which is a lot, which is really a surprise, especially for Martinsville standards. But William Byron is the driver of the day, basically because no one else was. Even when he wasn't leading laps, he was like running second behind Chase Elliott. And you basically couldn't pass at Martinsville, but everyone and their mother knew that once Byron passed Chase Elliott, he was gonna pull away, and he proved that in style. It really sucks that Chase Elliott really was a victim of like bad pit strategy, especially at the end, because I do not know what that pit call was at the end with Alan Gustafson. They could have had they could have salvaged at the very least a top 5 run, but But again, I don't really know what goes through Alan Gustafson's head, so I'm not one to judge. But that last call towards the end, it really perplexed me, honestly. He finished 10th, but that could have been so much better because, again, he started from the pole, swept both stages, and he finished. And he had a top 5 car at the very least. He was also the second best car behind Byron, so I really don't know. But yeah, most of the discourse was... Oh, and also one more thing. This race was so clean. There wasn't a post-race altercation. A lot of people were joking that it was gonna involve Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch because over the course of the weekend, the theme has been the number 1 car, the driver of the number 1 car or number 1 truck versus a Monster Energy driver. Oh, in the case of the truck race, I mean, Hailie Deegan was the number 1 car and a Monster Energy driver, but yeah, the driver of the number 1 car and the Monster Energy driver were going to fight, and a lot of people were saying, oh, we're going to see something happen between Ross Chastain and Kurt Busch, maybe. Yeah, that was something that was like some joke that was just flowing around in reference to all of the action that was going on, but the fact that it ended, that after all of that craziness that was the Xfinity race, it's really like pretty underwhelming just seeing the Cup race, just in this Cup race. Like, again, I do not think that this Gen 7 car, it ruined Martinsville. I'm not going to overreact. It's still a new car. Stuff is still being figured out. Also, you gotta understand that the track conditions were not optimal. It was raining all weekend long, washing away all of the rubber. There were also cooler temperatures. There's also the fact that drivers, were taking it easy because... Again, this is the first race with the Gen 7 cars at Martinsville, and downshifting, the braking points, they're still getting all that stuff figured out. By the time we get to the fall race, we're gonna see much more action. Of course, provided that the track conditions are optimal. If we see like a hot, humid Martinsville track, I believe we're gonna be in for some great racing. But overall, Martinsville was not really a bad race from my perspective. Because I would never hate on a clean race, even if it's on a short track. However, I can understand the frustration behind expecting action at Martinsville and then going to the track and then not getting that action, like seeing just the race unfold, just being a quiet race, for lack of a better word. I'm not gonna call it a snooze fest because I would never go that far. But Martinsville was not a bad race. However, you're expecting bumping and banging. I even said it during my last week's talking about Richmond that I expected the action to pick up at Martinsville. When I was comparing short tracks, I said that Richmond was more of the technical short track, while Martinsville was more of the bumping and banging short track. And I expected some action at Martinsville. So, I didn't hate the race, but it was pretty underwhelming because Martinsville has this reputation of being an action-packed racetrack. So, honestly, I didn't really, I didn't really dislike this race, but I didn't love it either. It was far from a barn burner. I'm gonna tell you that. It was a very uncharacteristic race for Martinsville standards. And, I'm getting pretty pissed off at people saying that the next gen car or the Gen 7 car, I don't know why I keep calling it the next gen car because it's not next gen anymore, but whatever. I don't understand why people are saying that this new car, it ruined Martinsville. It ruined short track racing as a whole because people are pointing out to Richmond being a bad race. Richmond has always been, again, like I said, the racing at Richmond was not that much different from the past races, from the past few years at Richmond, and again, the track conditions at Martinsville were not really optimal for Martinsville standards. So I do not understand where this the Gen 7 car ruined short track racing comes from. Maybe you guys put your expectations a bit too high on this car fixing short track racing. I mean, Richmond was more of the same, and I personally like Richmond. I don't know about you, but I personally like Richmond. Martinsville, though, I mean, I can understand the frustration behind this race being underwhelming after weeks of anticipation, but you gotta understand that the track conditions were not the best. It was raining, it was cold. That's gonna produce a lot of tight racing and drivers playing it safe. But overall, I'm gonna give this weekend a C. Overall, the Xfinity race was the best of the three, in my opinion. Even if it was a wreck, even if it devolved into a wreck fest towards the end, just because of the stuff that happened in the Pulse race, I'm gonna say Xfinity was the best of the bunch. But overall, this was just so. I didn't hate it because I mean, how can you? I would never hate on clean racing, as even if it's on a short track or a super speedway or whatever. I would never hate on clean racing. I always appreciate clean racing over the wreckfest, even though wreckfests are more entertaining. But for Martinsville standards and for the reputation that this track has gotten as a very action-packed short track, beating and banging, it was honestly pretty underwhelming to see a race like this. Now, hopefully, the Bristol Dirt Weekend provides us with something that fans really can appreciate, because unfortunately, fans today, they do not appreciate racing if it's not entertaining. If it's clean racing, they just frown upon it. That's just how NASCAR fans are. But hopefully, the Bristol Dirt Race is action-packed. I'm only saying that because that way less fans will complain about it. But honestly, I just hope the racing is clean and not another wreck fest. That's just what I'm hoping out of Bristol Dirt. But I gotta say, I'm still hyped.